This meeting will be, of course, we will be about the PEPP. And I would say that to start this meeting, of course, in the meantime, we'll open the slides. The very important message here is that we found two elements that are very interesting to us. The first is that EIOPA is very concerned about the functioning of the PEPP. We all know that the PEPP is not, unfortunately, taking off very well at the moment. Many reasons are also linked to the fact that member states were very late in implementing the PEPP. So, I mean, the reason is not necessarily the problem of the PEPP itself. Of course, there are some challenges, but there are also reasons of delays from the member states. So that's, I would say, the first element. The second is that the PEPP might be, and this staff paper that will be now presented, might be also used for occupational purposes. We know that originally the PEPP was conceived as a personal pension product, but today it seems that it might be used as well as an occupational product. And to be honest, this is something that we all know, and even during this meeting, we will have an experience that will be reported by the three speakers, basically from, in our case here, from Eni. Eni is the major oil company in Italy, and Fabio Chicchinelli here is the representative. And Eni is actually thinking about the possibility also to use of course, Fabio then will explain better. And then we have another experience, which is very interesting. It's from Life Goals. Life Goals is a pension provider based in Cyprus. And Life Goals is already going to launch a PEPP. This is important because it means that from these two speakers, there is actually market appetite for the PEPP. And so it's very important to understand how our speakers will imagine to use the PEPPs and their ambition. So this is the preliminary, let's say, point, the starting point of this webinar. And of course, now I will leave the floor to Pedro. Pedro, I think you see your presentation. It is
yes, I do.
online, so I will leave you the floor. And please go ahead.
Thank you, Francesco, and thank you for inviting EIOPA to take part in this webinar. For us, it's important to share our views on PEPP, but also to gather views from stakeholders around PEPP. So we'll very much appreciate to also have the other two participants in the panel who can share with us their, let's say, life experience, actual experience with trying to make PEPP work on the occupational side. My head of department, Valerie, was supposed to deliver the presentation. She had an agenda clash, so I'll be delivering it myself and also taking up some questions. As you were saying, Francesco, the reason why we are talking about PEPP today is because the PEPP was not a success so far. The other day, I was going through the impact assessment for PEPP that the Commission prepared, and the estimate was for the PEPP to be worth 0.7 trillion euros in 10 years. Which means, by 2032, you would have, kind of this potential PEPP market. We are far from that. What we have at the moment is one single PEPP provider distributing PEPPs in 4 member states. So we're really far from that. And we, as EIOPA, we had a look at the PEPP and the staff paper that you're mentioning. We published it in September with the aim of doing two things. One is really clarify what are the issues around PEPP. And these, I don't think they are a surprise. So we can go into the next slide. Yes, this slide is fine. They are not a surprise in the sense that this was what most stakeholders were sharing with us as the issues around PEPP. And we just structured them in this kind of way, supply side, demand side. And as you mentioned, the limited action by member states that you already referred to. But really to come to a conclusion that the issues around PEPP seem to be more structural than circumstantial. When the PEPP was launched, there was a view that, well, there are certain market conditions that are not favorable for the PEPP. The economic situation is preventing people to saving and therefore saving for retirement. But as the economic conditions progressed, we did not see any uptake in PEPP. And I do think the issues really are around the supply side, demand side, and the limited action by member states. I will focus mostly on the supply side factors, not only because one of the proposed measures we have is around that area, but essentially because the actions by member states is something that is completely outside the EUPA's remit. We have no way to influence, the taxation of PEPP around member states, and that role also promoting PEPP lies mostly with the European Commission. The demand side factors, I think they are not specific to PEPP. I mean, we talk about low pension participation and awareness, and really this is what we know generally from personal pension products. If you look into PEPP, I think the situation then is even more dramatic. We use our Eurobarometer survey where we ask questions to about 30,000 consumer citizens around Europe, and only 8% of them told us they knew what PEPP was. Now, I have to be honest with you, I do not know if they mentioned PEPP as a pan-European pension product or the pandemic program from the ECB, but still, 8% is quite low. And this last point we mentioned here about, the lack of disposable income due to the cost of living, it is a fact, but it is something that might impact the PEPP as much as any other product. On the supply side, really the major, criticism from potential PEPP providers, and we have at least one online, is really that the cost cap of 1% limits the attractiveness of PEPPs for providers, given in particular all of the implicit costs of offering the PEPP around, advice, around also offering sub-accounts in various member states, where then you have at play various rules around PEPP in terms of taxation, but also accumulation and accumulation rules. This means, that you end up having a very limited market size. And the other point that is worth mentioning is, in a sense, PEPP also competes against products that sometimes might be costlier, therefore leaving current suppliers with the choice between should I offer, should I continue to focus on my current products or launch a PEPP where I know upfront that, I have this 1% cost cap in terms of, the revenue I'll obtain from the product. And this really puts providers in a very difficult situation. And this is probably why we see so little appetite from PEPP in terms of providers. And the market is not working because of that. If you don't have offer, even if consumers really want to save into a PEPP, they can. There's no offer around Europe. So overall, I don't think the product has been successful. The paper we presented, yes, this slide is really to try, in a sense, to see, okay, what can we do in these three dimensions to make PEPP work? Again, as I said, the national measures is something that is not within EIOPA's legal remit. Of course, there's the need to grant the same tax treatment for PEPP as you would have for other similar competing products. Around the demand size, it is really an issue of tackling the overall pension participation. I don't think the issue is specific to PEPP. Pushing for people to participate into savings for retirement. We would be happy if they use PEPP or any other product, but really it is an issue that is way beyond PEPP. It impacts all personal pension products and to a certain extent also occupational pension products. On the supply side, this is the focus of discussion today. The objective here of the measures we're proposing, and I'd like to emphasize that these are possible measures. What we want to do is to explore those measures, see if they work, how they can work. So what we tried in the paper was, let's put all the possible measures, and then we'll assess together with stakeholders if they actually would make the PEPP more successful than it currently is. And really from supply side, what we are aiming here is to expand the potential PEPP market. The market as it stands is quite narrow. I'm not saying that the PEPP is limited only to mobile workers, but if you take this assumption of mobile workers, then we're talking about less than 15 million of European citizens living in a country of residence other than the one they were born. So really, 15 million people around Europe is a quite narrow market for any provider to say this is, the market I'm aiming for. And we had various measures. One of them was saying, why don't we combine the occupational and the personal components into a single product? This would actually, enhance the potential PEPP market. There seems to be also the view that occupational pension products seem to be more appealing or easier to develop than personal pension products, and therefore we would make, in this way, a larger potential PEPP market. The other point here is around, focusing on the value for money aspect. And EIOPA has been developing a lot of work on value for money relating to IBIPs, but we do feel that the same principle can and should be applied to pension products. It is the same. We, in a sense, we'd be following the same principles that we have in our value for money work. This would also take out, let's say, the 1% cost cap. And if this is the reason why providers find it hard to make a business case for the PEPP, if the issue can be discussed around value for money, maybe this problem with the 1% cost cap could be overcome. The other option we are considering is creating a PEPP label for national products, and the idea here is quite simple. One is to say that if one of the issues is offering PEPP cross-border, i.e., and by 2025, any PEPP provider must offer the product in the home country, as well as at least in another country over sub-accounts. And this brings some complexity to managing the product, as well as cost in terms of implementing and running those products. And the idea here would be, if you have the same product, the same main features from a consumer perspective, from a governance perspective, into national products, and make this cross-border aspect voluntary rather than compulsory, maybe then you would have a market for the PEPP. The other one worth noting is really that the PEPP is starting from scratch. So any potential PEPP provider is starting with a market that is clearly zero as a starting point, and building on a substantial customer base to make the PEPP profitable is also an issue. The option would be for allowing other personal pension products to be transferred into PEPP. Therefore, as a starting point, increasing the volume of participants, of money flowing into PEPP. But as I said, these measures are possible measures which we want to further develop and explore. Could I have the next slide, please? So, as conclusions from, let's say, from the paper, but also what EIOPA thinks, and the paper sets out pretty much our rationale and our arguments in the use around the PEPP is, the fundamentals of PEPP remain valid today. We think many of the features we see around PEPP should continue to be there, and the objectives of the PEPP remain as valid today as they were when the PEPP was launched. But what we also need to say is that, well, the PEPP is not working, and if we want this to work in the future, we need to revive the PEPP. We need to take these positive aspects on the PEPP, look into the negative ones, and make it work for the future. The last point that we also make in the paper quite clearly is that there's a lot of discussion around, savings products or EU-wide savings products. We still think that there should be a focus on retirement. One thing is saving with a 10-year investment horizon, to pay your mortgage, to buy a house, to buy a car, go on holidays, whatever. Something totally different is to save for retirement. And if, in a sense, you allow people to access the funds they've been saving before they reach retirement, you might still have the persisting problem of pension gaps, where people find it difficult to live in retirement, where sometimes expenses are not so diminished, but certainly income is mainly due to the reduction in state pensions. So we think, despite all discussion, it is important to save, to support the green and digital transitions, but let's keep a focus on retirement as well. In terms of the future work, the first thing we're doing, and as much as we're doing today, is really gather input from stakeholders on these proposed measures. See if your views, do they work, do they not work, pros, cons, and this is important for us then to develop specific proposals. What we intend to do, and we are currently doing it internally, is we're looking at each one of the proposals, prioritizing them in terms of what they should be, how they should be assessed, and by when, and then building also on our intelligence, market knowledge, also taking as much as possible, also be quantitative driven, then to further develop these proposals. And our goal basically is to this own initiative work ahead of the review of the PEPP regulation, which is scheduled for 2027. So ahead of that, what we intend to do, exchange with stakeholders, build our own views, develop them, and then let's see if those proposals we have, once we bring them to the Commission, they can actually be accepted and make the PEPP work. This is all I wanted to share from my side, so I'll be most interested to also have the views from other participants in the panel, but I can take questions now, later on, as you prefer, Francesco.
Many thanks, Pedro. Well, now I think that maybe, I don't know if you have any immediate questions. I'm talking especially, of course, to Panayotis and Fabio, or you would like first to make an introduction of your interest in the PEPP, what you would expect from PEPP, and then we can shift to Q&As. It's up to you. Panayotis, what do you think?
I think if I could make an introduction and share our experience so far, it ties really well with what Pedro just presented. So I think that would fit really well because we do have views and we did follow so far the developments with EIOPA and the staff paper and also from the OPSG. So I could just go ahead and do an introduction, share our 10-year journey. I mean, that really ties to cross-border pensions and the PEPP, and we can facilitate this, and of course, give the floor to Fabio and then facilitate the discussion based on what we present, if that's okay.
Okay, very good.
And actually, Francesco, I think it's better if I can share a couple of slides. I don't want to promote live course here, but I can just share a couple of things to explain what we did so far and the issues and the suggestions that came out from EIOPA, which are also what we have been discussing strategically internally at live calls. And so I can share a couple of slides. And please, if I take too long,
I'm giving you the authorization to share.
Okay. And if in case I take too long, please stop me, so we can have time for discussion.
Okay, very good. So Panayotis, can you upload your slides now?
Yeah, let me just try. 1 sec.
So there was a question from the audience. Can be PEPP offered as occupational today? We have global corporates based in the EU that are keen on doing this. Well, one of them maybe would be keen, is one of our speakers. But Pedro, what would you say? Is it possible?
This is a very interesting question, and it's one.
Yes.
It's from formally speaking, the question is unanswered the PEPP regulation. So what we have done is we have this process Q&A regulation where when we get questions from general public, we answer those questions, but when they are of fundamental interpretation of existing regulations, we have to send it to Commission. So this question was sent to Commission. In a sense, can anyone build up occupational pension and use the PEPP as a financing product? And there is no answer from the Commission yet. What our views on that, from a practical perspective, it would be feasible. We do not think there's any issue with combining under a single PEPP framework, both the personal component and a occupational component. And by doing so, you can tackle all issues around different tax treatments of employer versus employee contributions. So from an admin perspective, we don't see any issue there. But the answer whether this can be done under the current framework is an interesting question, and the issue here resides also in terms of taxation, whether PEPP would be compared to other occupational pension other occupational pension products that are tax efficient at the national level, which means that employees would not be double taxed in terms of the contributions made toward PEPP. So they're not be taxed in personal income and rather than other products where these contributions have got some kind of tax incentive or tax advantage or preferable tax treatment. As it stands today, this is not the clear case. And so for employees also becomes an issue whether, does it make sense as it stands from a tax perspective to have it done? As I initially said, all these issues around taxation are not within our legal remit. We would see the need for, if the PEPP becomes also a Pillar 2 product, for these things to be clarified at the national level. Of course, the view from the Commission is that PEPP should be granted the same tax treatment as competing products in national markets. It is recommendation to member states, but this is just a recommendation. It's not, it's not a directive. It's not, a rule set in stone by the Commission. I think overall this would probably be the way to go, but at the moment, as it stands, it can. It could be done, but tax implications might not make it, let's say, fully feasible. But maybe Fabio, from Eni and Latvia might have a different perspective.
We did actually. I asked you this question because we were waiting for Panayotis to upload his slides. So sorry, Panayotis, go ahead, and then we come back to the discussion also for this.
No problem. And I assume you can see the slides, correct?
We do. Yes.
Okay. Let me just explain how LifeCo started, and we're a company of Dutch origin, starting from Cyprus. The reason for the establishment of LifeCo was established in 2013 because the Merco group, the Dutch group that we belong to, identify the pension gap in Cyprus on Pillar 2 after the banking crisis. So we have developed the first, and I'm just saying this to explain where we stand in terms of the EIOPA staff paper and the OPSG paper on the PEPP, but also on the discussion paper on the PEOP. So we created the first IOP, multi-sponsored IOP in Cyprus 10 years ago in 2014 with very much success. And now it numbers more than 430 employers. So in order to do that, we develop our own infrastructure, our own platform, etc. So we realized early enough that this is a very good opportunity, and there is great need for multi-sponsored IOPs to enable smaller businesses to offer a pension solution to their employees. So with the success in Cyprus, we're considering how to promote this and expand this to the European Union. So with the IOP 2 directive, we have explored and tried to see how we can launch the IOP to other countries, and it became apparent. So it was so obvious to us that the process was so fragmented and cumbersome that it was almost impossible to launch a multi-sponsored IOP across the European Union. And we have seen many examples that actually tried to do that and failed. We did manage to passport it to the Greek market, and we do intend to be active in the Greek market, but it took us 3 years to get there. I mean, it was a 3-year process just to go to one additional country, and actually with the same language. And I mean, for us, it was supposedly, we thought it would be a much easier step to start from Greece to test a multi-sponsored IOP. So it became, very apparent that the IOP 2 directive, and this is not our conclusion, is exactly the conclusion also from EIOPA, as Petra presented at the CBBA conference earlier this year, a few weeks ago, actually. So when the PEPP, the first discussion papers on the PEPP came out, we were really, really interested and followed of the developments. So we focused on developing the third pillar the pan-European pension product. We started early enough, so we realized that due to the, and I don't need to repeat this, I mean, the changing of the workforce, the changes in the longevity, etc. What is needed in the market is a combination of a Pillar 2 product. So we do believe that there is a great fit for the PEPP. So because it's not only for the mobile workers and the self-employed, it can be offered as an additional tool for multinationals to offer PEPPs, pension solutions to countries which they don't have an IOR, but also for smaller companies to offer a PEPP, a pension product to their employees, given that they don't have the infrastructure and the economies of scale to develop a corporate Pillar 2 pension. And of course, it's obviously for hybrid workers, etc. It's a perfect solution. So we did follow the developments. We created, because we have all the and okay, I really don't want to just promote life coach. We created the infrastructure to develop the PEPP, and because we have developed our platform evolved from a Pillar 2 product, it caters for and it eventually evolved into a complete financial solution. It caters for both personal pensions, investments, and also occupational pensions, and we have trading efficiency, etc. So for us, really, the 1% fee cap wasn't really the issue. And as we try to advocate for the PEPP to be launched, first of all, in a home member state and then do the notifications to operate across Europe, even though that from 2022, the PEPP regulation was active and member states were supposed to should have been ready to actually accept application and launch the PEPP. Most of and this is also, we can see from the country readiness report of the OPSG that was presented earlier this year, most of the countries are not completely ready for the PEPP. And this could be due to delays. This could be due to interest group not really wanting the PEPP to really take off. So as we speak, because it's not only we have the PEPP regulation, we have the technical standard, the PEPP regulation came into effect, and even many countries have adopted a local regulation to actually implement the PEPP, but there are still other procedures at the competent authorities of each member state to actually launch the PEPP. So we think first and foremost the problem lies with the very late adoption by local regulators. So there is interest. We believe there is interest for the PEPP. There is a natural fit for the PEPP. We do believe that it can be a real combination between second and third pillar. We do, and in the discussion paper of the OPSG about the PEPP, we do agree with the first option of leveraging the PEPP regulation to actually create a occupational solution for the PEPP and not create a completely different regulation, because that was going to take obviously too long. What needs to be addressed for the PEPP in terms of to turn it into a second pillar to accommodate occupational pensions, first of all, is the treatment of the contributions from employers towards a collective PEPP. Also, what companies and organizations are concerned is about vesting periods. So these are things that need to be addressed to promote the PEPP into the second and second pillar, and also to make it a combination product. But in terms of from our view as well, it really needs to be enforced on local regulators to actually to make sure that they are ready. Maybe there could be a central. There is a page for the actual PEPs available in use on the EIOPA page, but there is no real clarity of the application processes of each member state and how an actual PEP provider that is interested is able to actually apply at each member state. So, as an initial comment of my side on the life goals side is that there is appetite. It could really be a solution. Employers are interested. There is lack of generally financial literacy across Europe. So that we're not going to see European citizens opting in a PEP by themselves. They need to be nudged. They need to be pushed. So we need things like auto enrollment. We need to, and definitely the tax incentive. It's a real decisive factor for PEP participation. So it needs to be either a combination of auto enrollment, tax efficiency, and allowing employers to offer it to employees as a solution. So enabling employers to actually negotiate on a collective, on a PEP collective, without being considered that the employer is actually a PEP distributor as it stands now in the regulation. So some initial thoughts from my side.
Thank you, Panayotis. Well, I would immediately now give the floor to Fabio. Just please keep for yourself a question that maybe you will answer later. There is a question for you about Greece. If you are planning to open up also PEP in Greece, and if so, also the timing of this. If so, the timing of your operations in Greece. But maybe later. Fabio, please.
Okay.
Now, could you give us your perspective as a multinational company, and of course your attitude and how you see the PEP?
Yes, Francesco. Thanks again for this opportunity to share my opinion in this panel. Let me just a quick introduction about Eni and our experience in the pension, because Eni is the major oil company in Italy and has 30,000 employees worldwide in 61 countries, and more than 3,000 employees are in Europe, in 25 countries in Europe. Since 2014, we worked a lot in order to rationalize the pension scheme that we have in Europe due to the merger acquisition. In the past, we had more than 40 pension plans in Europe in 20 countries that we had to rationalize. And in these 10 years, we worked a lot in order to close all defined benefit pension plans and reduce the number of the defined contribution pension schemes. Now we have more or less one, and we establish a pension committee in each country in order to offer the support to the subsidiaries managing director in order to manage this pension fund, because in some countries are very hard to manage this pension fund. In the last 4 years, we work a lot, Francesco, also with you, in order to find a pension vehicle in Europe, in order to set up a new pan-European pension plans for all of our European employees, with some difficulties, because Europe is in line with our expectation, and we need another vehicle that we want to use in all European countries. After 2020, we saw the paper for CBBA about the Pan-European Occupational Plan, and I'm very happy to see that more or less the similar project is wrote by OPSG.
Regarding the PEPP, right? The PEPP.
Yes, right. Yeah, yes. Exactly. For the Pan-European Occupational Plan, because it seems completely in line with our wish of the vehicle that is useful for us in order to offer to all European employees the same pension scheme, because we need that our employees in Europe have the same opportunity to have the access in a vehicle that offer a very good combination of investment risk and the same benefits of retirement. This is our idea of benefits, and PEPP is in line with our expectation. Meantime, with you, Francesco, with the CBBA and other analysis, also with the life goals, we are verifying in this period if the PEPP is useful to have a bridge vehicle waiting for the payoff to offer to the pension scheme in the countries where at the moment we are not a pension development vehicle, for example, in the east of Europe, Romania, Hungary, etc. And the PEPP, it seems in line with our expectation regarding the possibility to offer to the employees there that due to the number of employees and the number of assets it is not possible to set up a new pension plans there. And I'm very agree with Pedro that for us, the combination of payoff regulation is the best way to go, because it has not sense to have a new regulation for the payoff to start again with a new regulation due to the time that we have to spend in this activity, because we need the product now. We need to go fast. We need that the product is very accessible in the next months, because we are very interested to introduce this pension scheme, the pension product in all European countries.
Okay, so basically, Fabio, what you are saying is that any in principle would be interested in using this vehicle for occupational purposes. So basically, the offer for the moment, PEPPs to your employees out of Italy, if I'm not wrong, because in Italy, I imagine you have already a huge community, and so they are already covered by your occupational IOPS, local IOPS. But you also mentioned the PEPP, and you said that the PEPP might be somehow integrated. Pedro, this is something that probably would be interesting for you, because this is something that is coming from somehow also Panayotis, I think, considering that both a large multinational company and an open pension fund and pension provider is proposing maybe to have some additional articles. There is excuse me, there is someone with, I have to make silence. This someone is speaking up to us. I was saying, sorry. So basically, the PEPP could be integrated as an occupational vehicle within the PEPP regulation. So I don't know if there was any of these discussions in the IOPA, Pedro, but maybe you know, this paper on the PEPP, maybe not a new regulation, but at least, let's say, an occupational version of the PEPP. And so maybe some specific articles, like what if, in case of, your employers will offer this kind of product, and maybe so to have some specific articles dedicated to that. This might be interesting, not only because, to be very clear, we are very partial at CBBA, because we did also propose a lot this PEPP, but also because now we see that probably instead of doing a new regulation, there is still uncertainty, like you even mentioned yourself, Pedro. You as a IOPA, you think that the PEPP could be used by employers, but the Commission is not very clear on this. In some member states, there are still some obstacles, skepticism about using PEPP for occupational purposes. So maybe the revision, in addition to all the proposals you made, could be also a good point to introduce some specific articles for occupational purposes of the PEPP. Having said that, I would open up a little bit some questions, because Pedro made, I think, a lot of proposals which are very interesting for the revision of the PEPP. And I would like to know, first of all, from our speakers, but also from the audience, what you like, or maybe what you have, you think it would be problematic in the proposals from this staff paper from EIOPA. Myself, I would immediately have, of course, I would immediately welcome the ideas of removing the typical obstacles that for which the PEPP is not taking. I mean, the famous obstacles for which the PEPP is not really taking off. So the mandatory advice, the fee cap. So these are things that maybe also this idea of not having immediately the necessity to set up the PEPP in other two additional countries. I think those all those initiatives would be ease the creation of PEPs. Myself, but also as CBBA, talking to members, Pedro, this is very important. The level two risk mitigation techniques seem to be very complicated in some cases for the option of capital recap. So this is something that you should keep in mind because it's not really well mentioned, but it's something that for many operators still represent an obstacle, maybe equally as the fee cap in some cases. So this is something that you should keep in mind in case you will revise the PEPP regulation. I have myself few doubts about some legal doubts about the auto-enrollment. Auto-enrollment, first of all, open question, Pedro, then you will answer. How would it be possible to make an auto-enrollment for a product which is a PEPP, which is, of course, one of the potential competitors to other national occupational products? So, of course, that would be totally unfair with the local national. And we know already that some member states don't like the PEPP. If you make these proposals, the PEPP will be hated. And it would make a lot of sense, to be honest, because where is competition here, first? And secondly, when we talk about auto-enrollment at the European level, we are entering in legal competencies that are basically very much national. So basically, in my opinion, as a lawyer, I see a lot, even though I do agree in principle of having auto-enrollment for Europeans into funded pensions, let's say, in general, but I don't see European Union imposing an auto-enrollment in the national jurisdictions. So this is something that is nice, but I see it complicated. I don't know if you had any talks, for example, with the European Commission, with the legal services of your institutions. This is something that maybe is a little bit challenging, and maybe it's too much. But having said that, Pedro, maybe you can answer first, and then of course, we give the floor again to Panayotis and to Fabio. Thank you.
I have a question to Fabio that because Fabio was before I answer your question, Francesco, make some comments to it. Is you went through the process of assessing the PEPP used as occupational component. My question is why? What were the main obstacles? Why was this not done? So this is probably an interesting question for all the participants in the webinar. Now on the measures we have on the paper, I agree with you, Francesco, and I have to because some of the measures are very ambitious. The purpose of the paper, and I had this discussion internet EIOPA saying, let's put everything on the table to gather views from our stakeholders. And it is fine for us to come at the conclusion that some measures will not work. Okay, I think the auto-enrollment one is clearly one that it is successful in certain countries, but the measures we looked into here are in a sense challenging also for discussion, because the role here is if the question is if we are to make the PEPP work, what would we need? And we are aware that the interaction of a PEPP with other competing products, as much as Pillar 2 as Pillar 3, is an issue we have to consider. So even certain measures, a very simple measure, why don't we allow transfer of existing products into PEPP? Again, it has impact on the market structure. So we are aware of this, but I think it's important for us to have these questions in a paper so we can debate with stakeholders. And at the end of the day, we can propose some of these measures. Of course, the ones at the end we'll think will be feasible and will have positive impact on PEPP. And then the legislators will decide which ones are feasible or not. But overall, from looking at the issues around PEPP, all these measures are intended to do one thing, is to make the PEPP, to have a larger potential market for the PEPP. And I think without it, it will not work. I know we are being recorded, but this is my view. And just to mention the work on the PSG around the PEPP was a very interesting one. I followed it with much interest. And indeed, the idea of combining both, I think that's what makes sense. I don't think it makes sense to have one PEPP and one payout, and we can combine both. Now, the PEPP regulation is a product regulation. So in a sense, it is, it has the advantage of being easy to make the change at the product level. Now, how does this how do you make this, effective and operational given the various regimes you have at national level is something else. And I think this is, there must be a more, stronger political influence and, push from the Commission to do it. But this is pretty much outside our discussion on how we see the PEPP and what needs to be changed. On the issues around that, that also Fabio was saying around the role of supervisors. Two things. There are some countries which have not yet implemented the national provisions, and the Commission sent a formal letter to Portugal and Spain saying, why has not this been the case? This was in July, nothing has happened. From the supervisory side, I'm not defending EIOPA and my national supervisor colleagues, but it is a fact that many of these things are also new to everyone. Potential providers, consumers, supervisors, and we do have a lot in place to make sure that PEPP works from the supervisory framework. But I think as we gain more PEPPs, this will also make everyone's life easy, understanding what needs to be, adapted and changed. And this is a comment we get from our supervisors. They say, we do have, quite significant number of resources devoted to PEPP to look into the way of what the OPA is doing in terms of Q&As, some of the initiatives we have with our NCAs to gather the reviews, etc. And they tell us, but we have no PEPP. So it's kind of a work without any end result. And, I think this is from as supervisors, I think it would be better for everyone if really the PEPP is also a success. But maybe just this question I had for Fabio, what made you stop in terms of not going forward with this option?
So regarding the PEPP, do you mean?
Yes.
So, but at the moment we are doing the analysis in order to set up the PEPP in the Eastern Europe, but we have to be sure about two main aspects. The first one is if the company can pay the contribution directly to the PEPP. Yes, the first one. And if there are many barriers about this point. The second one is understand if we are free to define the strategic asset allocation for all countries, and if we can set up a centralized strategic asset allocation for all countries, because if we have to set up different strategic asset allocation, define and find the asset manager in each country, we are not convinced to open the PEPP there, because it's better to set up a new open pension fund, multi-employer pension fund there. This is the main aspect that we are try to understand in this period. I don't know if you have at the moment the answer about these points.
No, I took note of your questions, and I will, also assess internally. But these are very, very valid points because even before the PEPP, you did have several multinationals, and I worked in this area in the past, where this idea of having centralizing assets for pension plans offered across Europe or even jurisdictions across outside Europe was an issue. Of course, the way they were doing is they would have a fronting in the national markets, and then the asset would actually be managed centrally. Within PEPP, we need to look into this. I think overall, from a conceptual perspective, it would be possible. The only thing we need to ensure, but I assume that companies such as Eni would also have this in the back of their mind, is ensure we have governance structure in place, that we ensure that we are providing policy that in case your employers with the best managers out there, the best products, the ideal asset allocation, all of these things within the occupational world also work better because it's this care of duty from employers towards the employees. And I think overall we've seen a good experience where the employers do take these duty of care over the employees, and the outcomes seem to be positive. So overall, it is positive. It's something that ideally would be feasible. I will assess, and maybe we can discuss. We can further discuss that. But I took note of your question because it's a very interesting one for us to assess.
Petro, if I may, some feedback on our side as well with regards to the occupational side of the PEP, because we do speak with employers that are based in, I mean, multinationals that are based in various jurisdictions. There are three main concerns here about using the PEP as a solution for the occupational side in combination with an IOP or not. One has to do with the actual transfer. So there is no clear path to transferring member benefits, and I'm talking about DC, of course, member benefits for an IOR to a PEP. So, I mean, for this to really work, it needs to be ease of movement of employee benefits back and forth from an IOP to a PEP, and also between a PEP and other third pillar personal pension products with each member state. The other key query and concern of employers is that many employers use their IOPS also as a retention tool. So they offer employee benefits, they offer significant contributions towards an IOP, but they do apply, of course, in line with local regulations, a vesting period. So they're currently, obviously, given that the PEP regulation is just for a third pillar, there is no guidance or possibility actually to do vesting on the employer contributions towards the PEP. And the third item that is of concern is the tax treatment on the employer side, meaning currently in member states there are tax benefits for employer contributions towards the employee benefit, in addition to the tax benefits that the actual employee is subject to on the personal level. So that also the tax treatment of employer contributions to a collective PEP, it needs to be aligned to be at least or to be the same at each member state what it's also on the IOP side, the pillar 2.
Interesting.
And also,
sorry,
there is a question, if I may ask it, from Eleftherios Nicolaou on the chat. If we are gonna, if the PEP, life cost PEP is gonna be available in Greece, the intention is yes. But again, this is a good example. The Greek authorities, they did pass an initial decree which caters for the authorities to approve PEPs, but they didn't. But of course, in order to actually launch the PEPs, you need to have the regulation, the local decree, local regulations for the accumulation and accumulation pays and the tax treatment, which is still pending. So, and this is also shown in the OPSG readiness assessment. It does show Greece as having passed the local part of the regulation, but the other things are missing there. So, it needs to be pushed there to actually enable it to be launched. And this goes for each member state. There are things missing to actually launch. Some steps have been taken, but it's not 100% at each member state.
Excuse me for this. I'm coming from this statement now from Panayiotis about the Greece, and I'm sure in many other countries might be the same. Maybe a small appeal, let's say, to Pedro, to EIOPA, and why not also to the European Commission. Of course, EIOPA and European Commission cooperate very much. This is a real a request. Please try now to really help providers to set up PEPs, or even, of course, in the case of cross-border IOPS, you understood that the situation is similar. Because here there is a huge problem, and we are a little bit surprised. For sure, as CBVA, we are surprised, and our members as well. The European Supervisory Authority is not, let's say, safeguarding, somehow also punishing, if necessary, the local authorities in when they don't their work. And now, after, I mean, the regulation is clear. All these delays are creating a huge damage. So, Pedro, you mentioned it also in your first slide, no? Delay of member states, and they did also mention the same. But there is a moment when the market is trying to do something according to a legal European regulation, and they cannot because member states are not fulfilling their tasks. And the guardian of the treaties, here we are talking about the European Commission, of course, but also the European Supervisory Authority, at a certain point, they should act in order to make this legislation be implemented. Because this is, I think, and I fear, it's a large part of the problem. It's a large part of the problem. The PEPP regulation is for sure very much improvable, but at the moment we have only one PEPP in Europe, also because many operators are still struggling with their national authorities or national authorities of other countries. And this is not acceptable from the European Union. So Pedro, I don't know if you want to answer, but it's so obvious. In principle, at least, it's so obvious. When member states are not anymore complying with the European legislation, something should be done by the authorities.
I agree with you, Francesco, on the issue. This is a concern we also have. Generally speaking, we have, as EIOPA, we have no way of, you said punishing the authorities by not complying with a directive, with a regulation, sorry, in this case. But we raise these issues at the national level, and knowing what is happening, there were delays in certain countries which we followed at, and we've been highlighting this to the Commission. Our concern is, as you say, twofold. One, those member states have not yet implemented national provisions, and we had been alerting the European Commission to this, and in July, as I said, they sent a formal letter of a formal notice to the authorities of Portugal and Spain saying you need to comply with what's in the PEPP regulation. And this is as much as we can do, in a sense, to say, this is not happening. The Commission must take actions towards these member states. And as much as with the NCAs, we know, understanding what's happening in their market. And it is our capacity is more to influence, to raise the concerns, etc. Because as you were saying, when I said, we don't see a PEPP market because there are no providers, ahead of that is we have no providers because some cannot, even register a PEPP in their market. So the issue is coming from there. Unfortunately, the PEPP, the success of the PEPP depends on the national measures. And many of you mentioned taxation as an issue, especially around, employer contributions, how tax effective are those or not.
Yes.
And what our, although we cannot, as EIOPA, taxation is not within our legal remit, but we know it's an issue, and our, I don't say job, but duty is also to alert to these things. And if you look into the staff paper, in some of the communications we are highlighting this, but we are limited in the scope of action. But I know that if this is not there, a PEPP will not work, a PEPP will not work. We need this. We're not. And the Commission has been clear on this. It's not providing PEPP with an advantage over other products. So this auto enrollment for PEPP might be something that is it's not violent in the sense it puts PEPP at an advantage. But we should not have the PEPP as a disadvantage compared to other products that are competitors to the PEPP, because of tax reasons. My point here is not only about the tax reasons for employers, but if there is a need for such type of product, as Annie was saying, then it should be provided. And the issue that Annie faces is the same as many multinational companies around Europe. And if you compare it to the States, any company in the States can set up a 401k. It's flexible, it can be moved around, it can have, it can be cross states, and we don't have this in Europe. And if there is the need as a rationale, I think it should be there. We'll be working on that, going forward. But as much as we can, let's put it this way, this is also why we wanted to have a rationale and a clear message on the PEPP, and the staff paper I just presented was really also that. And it has, it has alerted the Commission also to these issues. On the 10th, we have a follow-up meeting with them on this, also really trying to discuss the review of the PEPP for 2027, all of these things, because we think that there are a few simple things in a sense that can be done to make the PEPP work, but at the moment it is not working as anyone would like it to be working. I think providers, as much as the authorities, as much as consumers. So it's a joint work here to make it work in the future.
Thank you, Pedro. Maybe last comment. When you talk about taxation, I come back a little bit to what I said before. One issue is the different treatment or unfavorable treatment in taxation, and you are right. In principle, you cannot do anything because it's a national competency. The other issue is that if a member state takes 3 years to disclose the tax treatment of the PEPP, yes, it is I mean, not necessarily yours as a IOPA, but the European Commission cannot accept this. So, I mean, the problem was not only which treatment, whether it was favorable or not. The problem was that it was not disclosed. So it was a way to postpone the process. And this is something that instead the European Union should not accept. When a regulation is approved by the Council, the Parliament, and so on, that regulation should be applied. So I can tell you, providers were stuck not necessarily because taxation was not favorable, but because they didn't know which taxation was applicable. Second point, and then I will leave the floor for the last tour. We are a little bit late, a few minutes. Maybe there is food for thoughts, let's say. When a member state makes a clear discrimination between national products and PEPs, it might infringe the European principle of non-discrimination in the internal market. So yes, of course, it's not taxation itself, but a use of, and there are many judgments of the Court of Justice in this. If taxation is used to make obstacles to the smooth functioning of the internal market, meaning protectionism, then yes, there is a competence of the European Union. Because when products are very similar, there are principles like mutual recognition, freedom of provision of services, and so on and so on and so on. And so when they try to really block a product only because it was not set up in the same country, but it was set up in another country, or anyway, it is similar, this could be a discrimination. So just for food for thoughts, but there is not, I would not so be pessimistic that we cannot do anything. There might be a case on this.
Yes.
Okay. I will leave the floor maybe for the last two comments, if you agree. I saw there were some questions. You can read the questions from the chat. Maybe last two questions, or maybe final remarks to Fabio and Panayotis, and then we have to close because we are really late.
I see the question for me about when we close and froze the benefit scheme, defined benefit scheme.
Yes.
Yes. So when we closed and frozen our defined benefit scheme, we usually have done a compensation to employees in a defined contribution pension scheme that we set up instead of the defined benefit pension scheme. This is our policy that we applied in all worldwide level.
Thank you. Panayotis, have any final comment or answer?
Yeah, sure. My final remark on I mean, this is a good opportunity for the revision of the PEPP to address what needs to be done to enable it to be a collective and also safe as occupational pension, and also that there is a need to make some things simpler for the PEPP. For example, make the basic PEPP a bit simpler and make the product a bit simpler and really have transparency on each member state to make sure. I mean, the readiness factor it's key. We can. I mean, any regulation, if it's not actually implemented on the ground, is really that's going to need to be done. So, country readiness, it's number one, and there is a good opportunity to leverage the PEPP for the occupational pension side with the upcoming update.
Thank you very much. So I would really like to thank all of you. Thank you, Pedro from EIOPA, to be so clear. You have been very open to discussion, and we thank you a lot for this. Many thanks to Panayotis from Life Goals, and congratulations for starting a PEPP and be so brave to go in Europe with a PEPP. We need it. Congratulations and thanks to Fabio from any large multinational company, which is in fact assessing to create a PEPP for its employees in Europe, which is also a very interesting feedback from the market. So the PEPP could work. Of course, EIOPA and the Commission will have to do their work, and we will be happy as CBVA Europe, together with our members, to give you the feedbacks that you proposed to receive, Pedro, in your presentation on the revision of the PEPP, because as you can see, we have many ideas, but also many concrete cases on the ground that could be solved. So we will be happy to cooperate with you to try to make this revision as better as possible. Thank you again to everyone. The webinar will be available online. So in a few days, it will be updated. And just for the conclusion, this is a webinar which are organized within the initiative of the European Retirement Week, of which CBVA is part. Thank you again and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.